Welcome again, I'm Throught and this is yet another budget deck tech. It's been a while since I posted a video of any kind on this channel, but I think I am ready to start again and create some fun and budget decks for you to play. For today I have a deck that I play myself every day. It works really well and it is competitive while still being on a budget. Some of you might remember Alchemist decks that not that long ago were an actual thing in Standard. With cards we have now, we can somehow recreate Alchemist's way of playing. There are many ways of doing it, and while I prefer more control-like strategy in which we want to remove any card our opponent would play or preferably counter it, you can also head into direction of an aggressive burn deck. The deck we will check out today is Izzet Jumpstart Control. I will do my best to abuse this awesome ability, which is, I believe, totally underrated. I love playing this deck, hope you'll enjoy it too. Anyway, let's head to the brewery. As for our Alchemist-like cards, we have 4 copies of Electrostatic Field and 3 copies of Gutter Snipe. More or less they do the same. We cast an instant or a sorcery spell, they deal damage to an opponent. Electrostatic Field feels somehow better, as we can play it as fast as on turn 2, and it is not that easy to remove, because many players stick to red removal, which normally hits for free. Gutter Snipe is more explosive, of course, but it is kinda slow and easy to kill, and that is why we don't have full playset of it. Since these 2 cards are the engine of this deck, we need fuel for them. For that reason we have Opt and Shock, 4 copies of both of them. It is never bad to have Opt, it cycles itself, triggers our alchemists and can dig into our deck with Scry to provide us with next instant or sorcery card to cast. Shock is also useful as it is not only our early game removal spell, but thanks to electrostatic fields and gutter snipes, it turns into lightning bolt or even galvanic blast in face of our dear opponent. To stay alive against aggressive decks, we also need some better removal. To ensure ourselves that we can kill something out of shock range, we have a full playset of Lightning Strike and 3 copies of Beacon Bolt. Lightning Strike is pretty obvious, a decent burn spell or removal, nothing to talk about. Beacon Bolt is a lot more interesting. This is a card that I couldn't believe that can be good. Somehow it is. Sometimes we end up with 3 mana does nothing card, but normally, thanks to our early game removal and cheap cantrips, we can survive long enough to make this card viable. One of main Izzet problems is that we don't actually have removal spells for big fat guys, at least we didn't have, as now there is Beacon Bolt. It grows throughout the game, and what is also important is its Jumpstart ability. We get 2 powerful removal spells in 1 card, which is awesome by itself, but what is more, it also triggers our alchemists twice, which is a huge deal. I love this card and you have to check it out by yourself. It is just great. Remember that we count both instant and sorceries in graveyard and in exile. Another way of dealing with big blocks is not letting them in. Ionize is a perfect card for this purpose. Blue-red mana cost makes it easier to cast, and 2 damage it deals is more than enough to include 4 copies of it in the decklist. This card is pretty good by itself, but it gets insane with a little help of electrostatic fields and gutter snipes. As it is more of a control build, we need many ways to refill our hand to have advantage over our opponent. To do this, we won't limit ourselves just to opts. We also have full packet of jump starters, 4 copies of canisters inside and the same number of risk factors. As for the first one, maybe inspiration type of card, so draw 2 for 4 mana isn't really exciting, but having an option to do this twice with 1 card sounds a lot better. Feels really great against slow control decks. Risk factor might sound not so great. Giving our opponent the choice is never a really good thing, but I believe this time it is just okay. I prefer to play that in the late game when our opponent has no choice but to give us draw free option. In the late game we are also able to jumpstart this card just after casting it in the end step, so we get to draw up to 6 cards and deal 8 damage, or even more with our alchemists. Risk factor is not a card for every build there is, but it definitely works for us. The last non-land card we have in the main deck is Expansion to Explosion. This card is like the most underrated card ever. Well, maybe not, but still, It sees no play, and I can't understand why. We play against control. Opponent counters our style with Negate. We copy his Negate to counter his Negate. Great. We play against aggro, mid-range deck. We need 2 copies of our removal. Nothing to worry about. We have expansion to double lightning strike these filthy creatures. We can also copy our Chemister's Insight or Risk Factor. It is just perfect. You have to remember that you can copy opponent's stuff, so nice Astrophy you have there. It would be a shame if someone would copy it. And that is not all, as we also have Explosion side of the card, which is a nice way to refill our hand and deal some additional damage. And guess what? If we have Expansion, we can copy it, as its converted mana cost is just 4, no matter the value of the X number. Our mana base is not a complex kind of thing. Because of our sideboard plan, we don't play any colorless lands, like Field of Ruins for example. We just have 8 islands, 10 mountains, 2 Izzet Gale Gates and 4 Surfer Falls. Obviously, it's a great idea to include Steam Vents if you have them, but for this list I wanted to stay in a budget range. If you want to make this list even cheaper, cut Falls and add more Guild Gates. Now let's head to the sideboard. We have 3 Negates against control and token decks, 3 Essence Scatters against aggressive and mid-range strategies, 3 copies of Fire Mines Research, which is a great way to gain advantage against control decks and to dodge counterspells, as it is just 2 CNC. 3 Lava Coils against big creature decks like Boros Angels, 1 copy of Fiery Cannonade against Go White strategies, and this sideboard's all-star, Izzet. We have 2 copies of this card since sometimes it wins games by itself. I tried to make a deck around him, but his mana cost made it hard and vulnerable strategy. He's a lot better entering from sideboard against the opponent who probably sided out more powerful removal, and even if not, Izzet replaces himself, and it's not the only way we can win a game. I hope you will experience true power of Izzet and opt or shock combinations, and great numbers of draws and damage he can provide us with. This deck is somewhat similar to popular Izzet Drake's list, but I think it is more versatile. Drakes are cool, but once they are removed from the game, we don't have many other ways of winning the game. In this jumpstart control list, we don't really care if we lose one of our alchemists, and we always have some spare card in a graveyard to cast. That is why I prefer this kind of list. If you want to upgrade this deck, you might consider adding Ral, Izzet Viceroy, but I'm not 100% sure about this. Our deck likes to have many cheap spells, and while the Planeswalker helps with getting them into our hand, he's not that easy to cast and maintain on board. Anyway, it is some way of upgrading the deck, perhaps. Well, the most obvious upgrade is adding Steam Vents, but I've already mentioned it. Another card that I considered was Search for a Scanta, but I guess we prefer to stick to our instant and sorceries. Maybe Search is a good idea, but it might slow us down. You can check it out, but I think we are better off without it. And that is all for today's deck tech video. I hope you enjoyed it, and if that is so, hit that like and subscribe buttons below. See you soon!